everybody. We're here for another episode of Bonafide Business Talks. I am here with the owner and operator of the Hurricane Shutter Company in Fort Myers, Scott. Scott, how you doing today? Good?
Doing great, Vic.
Good. Glad to hear it. I also forgot to press record on that, so we're going to start now on the podcast. We wanted to come in today to ask you some questions. We live in Florida. Everybody has to deal with hurricanes whether they like it or not. So you're in a pretty good business when it comes to that. But there's a lot of things we don't know. And I'm here to get the answers. I had a lot of people send me some questions, but to start off, why don't you tell everybody who's watching how you got into the business and how long you've been in business?
Well, we actually bought an existing business. Hurricane Shutter Company has been around since 1979. And my father and I bought it in 2000. And so we've been operating the business now for 19 and a half years. And we'll be celebrating 20 years of owning the business next April. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
What made you decide to do hurricane shutters over something else? Was it the necessity of Florida, or?
Well, it was a bit of a learning curve for me. We didn't really think shutters initially. We were looking for a small business in Florida, and back in 2000, when we were doing our research on hurricanes, for researching the company, discovered that Fort Myers area had not had a hurricane since Donna in 1960. So it had been 40 years, and we were kind of overdue because this area tends to experience a hurricane every 15 to 20 years prior to 1960. And we were figuring, hey, after 2000, possibly the cycle would resume. And as we know from Charlie and Irma and Wilma back in '05 down to Naples, the cycle has certainly resumed itself.
Oh, well, that's for sure, because I'd say we've gotten more than one every 30 years recently.
Well, yeah, it was every 15 to 20 years in the Fort Myers area prior to 1960, and now we've had three in the last.
Say we've had three since I've lived here.
three in the last 20 years. So yeah, we're catching back up.
All right. Well, with that being said, I'm a homeowner myself, and I'm one of those people who has gone out and thrown plywood up over my windows, and then I cut little view holes in them so I can watch the hurricane come by. And I've generally always thought that was good enough, but apparently it's not.
Well, there's a number of factors that go into that. It depends on how thick your plywood is, depends how many screws you use to put it up with. So those factors will come into play. Some thin plywood with just a couple of screws may do you good up to, say, 90 or 100 miles an hour, but should you experience category 4 or 5 event, I don't think that would be sufficient.
So speaking of the wind thing, one of the questions somebody commented and wanted me to ask was when it comes to the wind rating on a hurricane shutter, are most of them all rated the same? Is it like a standard that they require, or can you like get a hurricane shutter that's good to 100, get one that's good to 150? Like how does that work?
Well, let me explain, because there's a couple of things that are involved here. For becoming an approved hurricane protection device in the state of Florida, it has to pass some certain independent lab testing to be an approved product. There is what they call a large missile impact test, where they shoot a 9-pound 2x4 out of an air cannon, and it hits the product, and the product has to stop that.
That's the job I want. I want to shoot the cannon.
It is kind of the fun test of the test. So it must stop and drop that 2x4 to be an approved product. Now, so it's a pass-fail system.
Mm-hmm.
If it stops it, it passes. If it doesn't, obviously go back to the drawing board and make your product better before you bring it to the state. There's also the fact that when it comes to wind loads and wind speeds, that has more to do with the fastening of the product.
Okay.
Now, larger and more frequent fasteners are what's required based on different wind speeds. If I'm doing an installation on a barrier island, I'm going to be engineering that product to 170 mile an hour wind speed with also a bit of a buffer in there, but it's 170 mile an hour that we have to engineer that.
And that's
product.
based on like the spacing of the attachments. That
Right,
kind of stuff.
so it's going to be a 1/4 inch fastener, possibly a 5/16, or even stepping up to a 3/8 diameter fastener, and then the frequency of it. Is it every foot, every 6 inches? Nowadays, it's even, on some projects, it's even every 4
So for the
inches.
most part, once they pass the hurricane rating test, the wind thing then goes into consideration of how it's installed.
Right, so
Okay.
there's the large missile impact, which means it's gonna stop something flying through the air. Then it also has to stay in place and not blow away, and that has to do with the fastening, because if you think about like a sailboat, when a large wind load is on that sail, it really needs to be fastened extremely well at both ends, or it will rip that sail loose. And it's the same thing for a shutter. If you have an opening on your home, that wind load on that particular opening, it needs to stay in place and not breach that opening.
Now, I do know also, just I want to interject something here. I know you're doing something new coming into 2020, where you are actually increasing the size of your manufacturing of your awnings that you use, the Ray blocks. Now, those aren't actually hurricane shutters.
No.
So if you have those that you lower those down for the hurricane, you're not necessarily safe.
Right. Those are clamshell awnings, which is our Ray block brand.
And you make those yourself here,
We
right?
manufacture them here in-house for the local Tri-County area, Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties. And they are not an approved hurricane protection device. They will not stop that 2x4 from penetrating at 35 miles an hour. That doesn't mean that they aren't any good and won't help at all.
Yeah.
They certainly
It's better
will
than
help.
just glass,
There's
obviously.
a philosophy of what they call maintaining the envelope of the structure. So when you have all your openings covered, you become more of an envelope or a ball, and the wind is much more likely to go around. Now, in the event of, say, a large object, say the neighbor's carport becomes flying debris, that could penetrate through that clamshell awning. Most of the clamshell awnings are good for really keeping mobile homes a lot cooler and keeping your
So it's
electric
more for
bills
like a
down.
heat load situation.
That also to keep the wind off the window frames,
Okay.
or the water off the window frames when it rains, so you don't get any water penetration and possible mold in your structure. And then also up until about, say, 80 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, they're going to do a good job of possibly, stopping any objects from penetrating. When you start to exceed 100 miles an hour, they may fail.
I understand. With that being said, also, I was at a hurricane party with our last hurricane where somebody had these screens that they stated, or they told me, which I called BS while I was sitting there. I didn't feel safe. But screens that came down that they actually sat behind and watched the hurricane coming through, saying that these screens would protect them if anything came at us. I was in doubt the entire time, but where's that myth at? Is that true, or?
Well, there's hurricane screens on the market. They are actually the most popular item
Okay.
as far as sales right now. Everybody likes the idea that they can look out and see what's going on outside. As with any product, there are advantages,
Pros and cons. to
pros
both
and
of them.
cons to it. Yes, they pass all the testing to become an approved hurricane protection device. One of their benefits, you can see out through them. They're a lighter weight product. They look good on the home as opposed to some of the other products. Real easy to use. You can have a remote control system. We now have a hub system with a phone app that you can operate them from remote locations. So there's a lot of great things that go along with them. Their one serious drawback is that should a pool cage fail and a sharp object impact the screen, it can fail and it can tear the product.
And once it tears, it's all bets are off.
Well, yeah, the product, any tear in the product will not propagate, but it can be cut. When we do, say, enclose a lanai, most of our customers have to make the decision: do I want to go with the older aluminum product, which is going to add a level of security, because nobody's going to take a knife and cut their way through an extruded aluminum roll-down shutter, whereas you could take a box cutter, simply slice a hurricane screen and walk into the person's home. There are benefits and drawbacks, but with an extruded aluminum roll down, you're not going to sit on your lanai and watch a storm.
No.
So you have to make a choice. Do I prioritize a level of security and give up being able to see outside, or would I like to have a product that I can use and even put down on sunny days and keep the sun off my lanai and have it more useful on a regular basis, or do I want to?
So both of them really can be used for multiple things. One
Yes.
can be used for security and, like you said, some shade during the summer while you're there, and the other one is more, protection and security. So
Sure.
they're both
Sure.
twofold
Sure.
on that.
There's benefits and drawbacks to both.
Awesome. I had somebody else that wanted to know, they just recently purchased a new house, and with the purchase, all of the windows were hurricane rated impact glass. I believe that's the terminology they
Yes.
use. And they're wondering, is that something, it says it's good up to category 5. Is that something that those types of homeowners should still look at having hurricane shutters? I mean, you just touched on the fact that there's a security enhancement on having a roll down or something of that nature, so.
Sure. Just to speak a little bit about the impact glass. There are some real benefits to the impact glass in that you do not have to go through really any process or procedures prior to a hurricane. And you can be out of state and your home is protected because they have passed all of the requirements for hurricane protection to be approved by the state. The drawbacks to those are that you can see with a horizontal rain hitting the glass that the water tends to sheet around the glass, and there have been quite a few incidences of water penetration
rain.
into the walls. And what happens is if there's no power for several days and the air conditioning's not running,
Yeah.
all of a sudden a week or so later, drywall starts turning black and you have a mold issue, and now, you're looking at possibly ripping out walls.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing if you've got rated windows out there for that. For those of you who did comment and send me the DM on that question, it wouldn't hurt to have those extra shutters up to help prevent that particular situation. And also the security factor.
Well, the impact glass does have a good security factor as well. I mean, you're not going to be breaking in through the impact glass. You can hit those with a hammer, and they're designed to stay there and not move anywhere. So they're great for being able to see out of. There's a lot of benefits to impact glass. There are certain scenarios where we find that it's the best product for the particular opening. Say a transom window that's above a front door or something of that nature, or an odd shape that's difficult to put a shutter on. Some of those we recommend.
See, I didn't think about that. So with that being said, I didn't even think about asking you. So every hurricane shutter doesn't necessarily suit every home or every scenario.
Right. I actually encourage our customers to consider multiple products for their home. A lot of times, the price and the ease of use tend to go together. The easier they are to use, the more expensive the product tends to be. When you're looking at, trying to get the maximum out of your budget, you want to enclose your lanai at your tie beam. It keeps all your furniture in there. You don't have to move anything around, and it also creates a good envelope at the perimeter of the structure. However, if you have, say, a small bathroom window that's 27 by 27 inches, to put an electric roll-down shutter on that might be a little bit of overkill. So a lot of my customers, I'll encourage them to be able to free up more money to spend in other areas. Take a couple of clear Lexan panels they're only going to be 3 feet long or less, a couple of wing nuts. You can put them up well before the storm. You're still going to get light into your room, and the ease of operation there, even though you have to get something out and put it up. The amount of money you save there, you can use that to upgrade in another area.
Cool.
So generally speaking, certain windows kind of call for certain products.
Well, and I actually had multiple people ask this comment because everyone's always concerned about costs since you're talking about how you help people save money. I believe there's a hurricane tax-free weekend, and everyone's wondering, does that apply to shutters as well?
Well, it would. However, when we install the product, there is no the customer does not pay any tax on that.
And that's a regular thing all year long.
That-
So,
that-
so it's
that-
tax-free on shutters all the time.
All the time, okay, as long as we do the installation.
Okay.
If you are buying something.
So you can't
what we
install them
call
yourself?
Over the counter. If we sell you something over the counter, say you would like to order something from us, and buy it and do it yourself, that is certainly an option. If you have the skills and the tools.
So if I bought it myself and just bought the material, is it included on tax-free
I would,
weekend?
I would have to charge you taxes.
Even on a tax-free weekend?
Except for when it's tax-free
Okay.
weekend, then I would be able to do that for you.
Okay, so it would apply there, so that's awesome. I don't want to give away too many gems. I want to make sure people know how to reach you. We do have this up here that has your Fort Myers number and your Punta Gorda number on there. You're also on Facebook. I know you're expanding your presence online. I believe that you're on Twitter and Instagram. I'm not sure where all that's going yet, but you guys can find them there. But these numbers here, it's 239-466-7577. He's got an awesome girl in the office named Jasmine that I'm sure will be happy to take care of you when you call in. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I can always come back and ask some more or reach out to him directly. Is there anything that you'd like to add at the end of value for a homeowner or anybody else that just is in a situation where, you know, we're not in hurricane season now, but it's going to be coming, just to be prepared?
Yeah, here's the thing is, this is the ideal time of year to look into, you know, your shutters for next season. We're 6 months out from the beginning of hurricane season. Everybody is staffed in my industry and ready to take care of people. Especially in our office here, give us a call. We do free estimates. Either Steve or Craig will come out, or even myself, measure openings, show you all the different kinds of options that are available, quote you all the pricing. It's no cost to you for us to do that.
Okay.
And then this gives you, if you do it now, you've given yourself time to make a good decision for yourself. We encourage people to take the time to think it through, buy products that you're going to be able to use in the event of a hurricane. As we all know, when one's coming and we're in the cone of probability, things get a little chaotic.
A little.
If you can be prepared and know that what you have for yourself for protection is something that you can use, you'll be able to take care of yourself in a fairly timely manner. You'll be much more secure, both physically and mentally, you knowing that you can get yourself taken care of. The number of people that call me in a panic at the last minute and say, I've got a stack of these metal things in my garage and I don't know how to use them. Can you help me? When I get 70 to 100 people a day call me and say that exact, you know, thing, I can't help all those people. So now's the time.
Awesome. What's your website?
www.hurricaneshutterco.com.
There you go. Well, this is another episode of Bonafide Business Talks in the books. Thank you so much, Scott, for being on. Again, if you guys have any other questions, hit me up on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, any way, shape, or form. Call me, email me, I don't care. Until then, have a great day.